It has been quite the few months regarding Resident Evil news, with leakers butting heads about the validity of a supposed Resident Evil 1 remake being in contention, along with when on earth we will finally hear an official word from Capcom regarding Resident Evil 9. Well, we've got more on that, along with a few other games that have been teased, potentially giving some credibility to a recent leak regarding a remake of one of Resident Evil's most treasured installments. Alright, let's cut to the chase. We've got another update on Resident Evil 9. Earlier this month, we reported a detailed and complete history of Resident Evil 9's leaks and developments, of which you can view for yourself in this video linked in the description, with the somewhat credible Resident Evil insider Dusk Golem remarking that Resident Evil 9 was initially slated to release in 2025, but then was pushed back to sometime in 2026 to make way for another Resident Evil game to release in 2025. Regarding Dusk and any other self-proclaimed insiders and leakers, take their information with grains of salt, people, because at the end of the day, none of this has been confirmed by Capcom, at least as of the publication of this video. Dusk, in early May, posted on X that Resident Evil 9 should be revealed pretty soon, with a release date early next year. A stark contrast from his previous statement a month earlier remarking that Resident Evil 9 had been delayed for a release likely in 2026, with another Resident Evil game filling the 2025 slot. In Dusk's 5-post thread on May 3rd, he explained that both Resident Evil 8 and Resident Evil 9 were being developed side by side in early 2018, adding to the list of existing RE games that were currently in development at that time, like the RE2, 3, and 4 remakes, stating that Capcom likes to greenlight batches of projects so that they can structure their releases in a near-annual basis. While all those games have since been released with the exception of Resident Evil 9, Dusk goes on to say that another batch of Resident Evil games were greenlit in early 2023, remarking that Resident Evil 9 had the largest budget and development period out of any Resident Evil game to date, and it is due to Resident Evil 9's ambitious nature that the game would be released significantly later than the 2018 batch of games in which it came from. He would also go on to say earlier this year that Capcom was currently working on 5 Resident Evil games, presumably referring to the recent 2023 batch we just discussed, with Resident Evil 9 and other projects we are going to touch up on in this video being among the pack. Again, we covered the roller coaster ride of a history of Resident Evil 9 updates in this video, which I encourage you to watch, as the game, if the leaks and rumors turn out to be true, reflects a very ambitious game that takes the series in a completely new direction. What's comical about the newest report from Dusk in his May 27th post on X is his back and forth narrative regarding Resident Evil 9's release date, as he currently believes that Resident Evil 9 has been pushed back to late 2025 or 2026. This post more closely adheres to his post back in April. I mean, hey, at least the guy apologized for his flip-flopping, as he's definitely giving the good old Magikarp a run for its money in flops per second. It seems in an effort to beat other insiders to the punch, he went ahead and dropped a bombshell of a thread that Resident Evil fans have been analyzing for the past couple of days now, revealing that 1. The recent RE1 remakes are absolute bogus, 2. That Resident Evil 5 Remake is not actively in development, 3. That Resident Evil 9 is pushed back to late 2025 or 2026, and 4, and perhaps biggest of all, that remakes of both Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil Code Veronica are in development right now. Again, grains of salt, people, but this is what we're going with so far, and honestly, I don't think Dusk Golem is far off the ball with this. Again, don't take my word for this, but just hear me out for a second. Back in December, Capcom publicly stated that more Resident Evil remakes are going to be releasing, and due to the success of each of these games, even the highly contentious Resident Evil 3 remake, these games print money and Capcom would be foolish not to remake these classic Resident Evil games that released before Resident Evil 4 transformed the series. Earlier this year, we even got a heavy nod from the voice actor of Albert Wesker from the RE4 remake stating that he is working on another game, with many believing that more Wesker and more Resident Evil remakes were being developed, and well, wouldn't you know, Resident Evils 1, 0, and Code Veronica, and 5 for that matter, all conveniently feature everyone's favorite Resident Evil villain. So yeah, I say even if Dusk Golem is completely wrong and out of his mind about Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0 being remade right now, that we will absolutely see these games get a remake in the future. Resident Evil is quickly approaching its 30th anniversary, and while a revisit to the Spencer Mansion makes a lot of sense, and was actually leaked, of which you can view my video on the history of that story, linked in the description, just last year in late 2023, we got a leak over on 4chan of all places that a remake of Code Veronica was in development. Interesting. Even though Dusk Golem previously spoke out about it, claiming that the leak was complete bogus, here we have him saying that a remake of the game is very much in development. I made a video about that Code Veronica leak, and I will recap it all in just a moment here in this video. But I do have to say that what was outlined in this leak contains stark similarities to systems that were used in Resident Evil 0. So hey, I'm just throwing it out there that I will not be surprised at all if we see both Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica get their remakes in due time. In case you missed the elaborate details from the Code Veronica remake from the playtester over on 4chan last year, here is what the Code Veronica remake entails. This leak comes from a post on 4chan from a user from Japan who claims to have been a recent playtester for the opening moments of Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake. The poster has released a decent amount of information pertaining to the opening moments of the game, along with other gameplay features that are quite different from the original game. Starting off, the user claims that this remake will feature the third-person over-the-shoulder format that we saw from Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Remake, which means we are looking at this potential remake getting rid of the tank controls and dynamic panning camera angles that the original Code Veronica sported. The prologue is said to start with Claire Redfield as she recounts the Raccoon City incident, something that sounds quite similar to how Resident Evil 4 Remake's campaign starts with Leon as he recalls those events. And a major deviation from the original game, however, this remake is said to have players control Claire during the original game's opening cutscene, showcasing her attempted escape from the guards at the Umbrella Building. Unlike the action-packed cutscene in the original, the opening in the remake would instead initially serve as a slow-paced tutorial where the player controls Claire in search of her older brother Chris Redfield, going in and out of offices and exploring parts of the building before being spotted by guards, and the ensuing escape, like the original scene, starts. Claire eventually becomes captured and is sent to Rockford Island, where the game begins proper. The playtester claims that the prison area of Rockford Island is vast, containing many cells and guard rooms, where a new character, Ricardo, lets her go. She eventually encounters a military man in a black suit, and while we don't have specifics if this is to be a hostile encounter, the man is quickly killed by falling debris from an explosion. This is approximately when the island becomes attacked and Claire is tasked to escape the prison. But before she does so, she encounters Steve Burnside, a character integral to the plot of Code Veronica, in a prison cell. The two converse, and after pleading with Claire to get him out, Claire hesitantly does so. Together, they escape and enter a safe room where the player now has the option to switch freely from Claire to Steve. The playtester suggests that the player can explore the next areas as any character, and that each character has their own set of skills. Claire is said to be better with knives, and her aim is better and faster, while Steve can fire with 2 guns at the same time, while being able to run faster, but at the detriment of being unable to mix herbs. Steve can also throw his knife from a distance at enemies. In addition to that, Steve is able to employ stealth, as perhaps this new mechanic, introduced from Resident Evil 4 Remake, could make its way here into this potential Code Veronica remake. He is also said to know some passwords to traverse to new areas. On the other hand, Claire is said to be better at puzzles, as she can inform the player on how to solve them, and can occasionally see hidden items. The demo is set to end when the two get to the palace before the playtester comically concludes with, "That is all I want to share," alluding to perhaps that they don't want to discuss or simultaneously bullshit more, as there is no public evidence that supports a Code Veronica remake is in development. But man, wouldn't that be great? Considering this is real, hypothetically, I have to say that I really do enjoy the idea of having the initial scene be playable with Claire in the tutorial section featured at Umbrella. I like that the remake is going for the third-person, over-the-shoulder format here like the previous remakes have used, as it greatly allows for more gameplay possibilities and is good for newcomers to Code Veronica, as new players are less inclined to play the older Resident Evil games with tank controls and fixed camera angles. I have to say I am a little skeptical with the player swapping between Claire and Steve, but who knows? If they truly do go down this route, then I hope that Resident Evil 0 gets remade, featuring better swapping between Rebecca and Billy, before moving on to the holy grail of them all being a remake of the Resident Evil 1 remake. But again, this is all speculation, and this 4chan post is just that, a 4chan post, claiming to be a playtester that played the opening moments of yet again another Resident Evil remake. Alright, so that was the 4chan leak that happened late last year, and with Dusk Golem recently coming out and saying that a Code Veronica remake is in the works, perhaps these details from the leak may come to light here, considering Capcom is currently working on this title. With Resident Evil 0 also being mentioned in Dusk's post, perhaps the character swapping system between Claire and Steve is a system that transcends that game and is applied to Resident Evil 0's character swapping mechanic with Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen. Regardless, I honestly really hope that these rumors are true, and that we do get remakes of both Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0, as these games better set up Albert Wesker and the role that he ultimately will play in an inevitable Resident Evil 5 remake. Absolutely fascinating stuff, seeing where all this insider information is taking us right now with the future of Resident Evil. But let me know what you think about these rumors. Do you want to see both a Code Veronica remake and a Resident Evil 0 remake? Do you think Capcom is also working on another Resident Evil 1 remake? With the series' 30th anniversary rapidly approaching in 2026, we are no doubt on the precipice of getting even more Resident Evil games, and if these games are at the caliber and quality of the Resident Evil 2 and 4 remakes, we have a lot to be looking forward to. Go ahead and watch this video detailing everything we know regarding the recent rumor of the Resident Evil 1 remake, and let me know in the comments which Resident Evil project you are most looking forward to, and I will see all you awesome people real soon in the next one.